Okay guys, so today I wanted to do a video on some summer essentials that you need for both you and your horse. If you hear munching or snorting, that's Bugsy on the other side of this wall. She's currently drying right now because I just gave her a bath. Uh, and as you can tell by me being in a tank top and the fact that Bugsy just had a bath, it's hot here already. I think our high for the today is supposed to be like 84 or something ridiculous like that. Um, so for us, it's already summer. But for the rest of the country, it probably isn't. It's probably still somewhat wintry, springish, especially back east where they're still getting snow fronts. Okay, so the first couple of items are actually for people, and then we'll work into the horses in a minute. But because I overheat so easily, I like to have rags on hand, which these are. This was actually a scarf, and as you can tell, it had kind of like that Western cowboy print on it. And I cut it in half because it was really long, and this one is for me, as the way that I tell is it has a knot in the middle of it. That one's for me. And the one that doesn't, if I unravel this, see it's just by itself. That one's for Bugsy, which I actually have to wash these because I haven't washed them yet and they're filthy. But the one I use for Bugsy, I just wipe her face. She gets really goopy in the summertime, especially because of wind, dirt, flies. She just gets really goopy in the summertime. So I keep this on hand for her, and then I keep this on hand so that I can actually put it around my neck. Which what I do is I drench it in cold water, and then I just put it around my neck, and I'll either tie it very loosely down here like so. I might even do a square knot sometimes. But I'll either do this with it, or I will just, that's not even a square knot, that was terrible. Or I will just take it and actually just loop it through my tank top, like so. And then kind of fluff up the neck a little bit. And what this does is when it's wet, it not only keeps your neck cool because of the water, but also if you have any kind of wind, it'll actually blow through this material and keep you much cooler because that cold air will start to hit you as if it was like AC blowing on you. And as you can tell by this material, it's very, very thin, so the wind does blow through it very easily. So that is really good to have on hand, especially if you're in an area where it gets really, really warm. And it just keeps you from getting overheated a lot easier. The next thing that I keep on hand is some form of a hat. Now I have a cowboy hat, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I actually made this little brow band, or hat band, whatever they're called, just out of like little tiny beads. But I don't always use my hat. Sometimes I do. When I was younger, I used hats a lot more than I do now. So a hat is a good thing to keep on hand. Just that way it keeps the sun off your face, it keeps it off your shoulders a little bit, it keeps you a little bit cooler, depending on the type of material that it's made out of. Another thing that you can get is, I think it's called an equivisor. I could be very wrong, but I think that's what they're called. And it's just a visor that you put on your helmet. It makes it look ridiculous, but it works. So if you're someone who rides in a helmet, that would be very beneficial. The next thing that you always want to keep on hand during the summertime is water. My water's actually over there because I have water over there somewhere. But you want to make sure that you stay hydrated during the summertime, both for you and your horse. You want to make sure your horse has access to water all the time during the summer, because it's just as important to keep you hydrated as it is to keep your horse hydrated. So the last thing that I suggest to have for you as the rider also is another thing that your horse needs, and that's sunscreen. If you are a very fair-skinned person, you need sunscreen. I don't use sunscreen because I've got thick Italian skin that doesn't burn that easily. But if you do have very fair skin that does burn, you want to make sure that you have sunscreen on hand. If you have a horse that has white on their face, down towards the bottom by their nose, up by the top of their head, it doesn't really matter because their hair is a lot thicker. But down by their nose, they're more susceptible to getting sunburned because the hair there is thinner and the skin is a lot more sensitive. So you do want to be careful that your horse doesn't get sunburned. Bugsy doesn't need sunscreen either, just because she's a Mustang and she was built to survive in this in the wild by herself without having sunscreen or any kind of protectant on her, so she's all good all by herself. But if you do have a horse that does get sunburned, make sure that you do have sunscreen for your horse. So the next thing that you want to keep for your horse for the summer is some form of a shedding blade. You want to use this more towards the beginning of summer until your horse is done shedding, and it just helps them get their hair off. It will fall out naturally, but this just makes it so it speeds up the process a little bit. And piggybacking on this particular one, you also want some form of a sweat scraper. The flat side of this is actually a sweat scraper, and the other side that's sort of... And the last thing that I suggest to have on hand during the summertime is some kind of a hoof oil or conditioner. This is just whatever the F brand is. Febrings, I don't know. I never say it right. But I just have hoof dressing. You can get Rainmaker, which is... There's some right there. Come on, finger, work. There we go. Whatever hoof conditioner you need for your horse. This is actually more on a pick and choose basis. Some horses don't need it during the summertime, but other horses, their feet get a little bit more cracky and a little more brittle during the summer. Perforated and has little teeth is the shedding blade portion. You do want to make sure that you sweat scrape your horse after you ride them, or if they get sweaty, just to take off that salt and make it so that they can cool down a little bit faster. Also, giving your horse a bath is very key during the summertime too, so you will need to squeegee them off a little bit. Sweat scrapers and squeegees basically do the exact same thing. And just pick the one that you like best. There's different kinds of shedding blades, like a shedding blade or a metal curry. And there's also different types of squeegees, sweat scrapers, whatever you want to call them, that you can get. So whatever you like best and whatever your horse likes best is the one that you probably want to have on hand. So the next thing that you want to keep on hand is some version of a fly spray. I like Bronco fly spray. I really like the smell of it. It's what I've always used. And it works for me. Again, this is something that whatever works for you, for your type of flies that you have for your horse. If your horse doesn't like the spraying, I did a video on how to teach your horse to accept fly spray. But if you really don't want to try and fix that problem, you can always get roll-on fly spray, or if while you're teaching your horse to accept fly spray, you want to get some roll-on, that works too. But again, whatever works for you and your horse is what you should be getting. It's all up to preference with fly sprays. Next thing that you want during the summertime is some kind of a shampoo, because you do want to be able to bathe your horse during the summertime just to really get that sweat and dirt off. You don't need to bathe too much. Now, I have two different types of shampoos. I have the type that's just for her body, which is the mane and tail, and then I have some Vetrolin White and Bright for her white socks. I don't put this on the face. I don't put shampoo near my horse's face. The highest that it goes is her mane and up her neck. But I don't put a lot of shampoo anywhere near where her eyes and nose are, just because I don't want to get any soap in there, and I really don't want to get any soap in her ears either. So I don't condone shampooing a horse's face. I don't think that that's okay, because the soap can get in their eyes. And I know that that burns when it gets in my eyes, and I'm not going to do that to my horse. I do, however, bathe their face with water, but I don't put any soap there. Anyhow, guys, I hope this video helped, and we're going to end it there.